Hello there! I've waited to do the villain series for such a long time, and I am so happy to begin it. And Utiel's new series tells a new way to introduce. I will tell the story during the Speedpaint. Because I wasn't able to change too much the purpose of the main six and the princesses in the show, I didn't have much freedom to distort the story, but I surely can do it with the villain series, since until it has some impact in the story, I can change it. But for Sombra, I would change the design and story a bit slightly. That's why he's the first to get Redesign in the series. I don't have anything to say about the design, because the original Sombra had enough potential to me that I didn't have the urge to change him a lot. So I didn't make plans actually. I would just pimp him up so he can look better. I want him to look more badass, if I can say it like that, and that's pretty all. As for the story, it is also super close to the original one because it was also good, so it is going to be a sad story, like the original one. So here's now begins the story of the King Shadow Spectrum. Long ago, during the reign of Princess Venesi, the Crystal Empire was protected by the light of the Crystal Heart from the Umbrum. The Crystal Heart was an artifact that was bringing light to all the Crystal Empire and the Crystal Ponies, making them shining bright and protected from the darkness. The Umbrum were an army of ponies made of shadow, wanting to rule over the Crystal Empire. But because they were made of shadow, the light of the Crystal Heart didn't allow them to come near the center of the Empire to rule it. So they decided to send Spectrum, one of them who were born part Umbrum, part Unicorn. It will allow Spectrum to shapeshift into an average unicorn. The plan was to come near the Crystal Earth and destroy it. Unfortunately for the Crystal Empire, his power of darkness was perfectly working near the Crystal Heart when the Umbrum's one wasn't. He managed to destroy the Crystal Heart into pieces, collecting it so that Princess Venesi was not able to form it back. Now without the light of the artifact, the Umbrum was able to rule over the kingdom, enslaving the Crystal Ponies and banishing the princess into a frozen desert. Spectrum was at first very glad that he did that, because now they were able to have an empire, until he fell in love with one of the Crystal Ponies. This Crystal Pony was the most beautiful creature he ever saw. Bright and white as the snow, but comforting and warm looking. They decided to live their love story in secret from everyone. Blinded by the love he had for this stallion, he gained a second thought to what the Empire was going through and decided to fight the Umbrum for the freedom of the Crystal Empire as a spy. But with the Crystal Heart now gone, he didn't have a choice but to find the male protector for the Crystal Heart. The only one who was able to fix it, Princess Venesi. Spectrum searches for her, eventually finds her, and he brings with him the shattered Crystal Heart. Once returning to the Empire, she uses her power to bring light again to the kingdom, reforming the Crystal Heart. Now the Crystal Heart shining bright again, the Umbrum army was defeated. But instead of completely vanishing, they came right into the heart of Spectrum, corrupting his heart and mind because he was a traitor. Possessed by an entire nation, he became as dark and maleficent as the darkness himself. Venesi banished him into a frozen storm, far away from the kingdom, but before he disappeared, he put a curse on the kingdom and made the entire empire Crystal Ponies and Venesi disappearing with him. It's only 1,000 years later, when Spectrum returns to rule over his empire, that everything returns with him, even his Umbrum army, claiming himself King Shadow Spectrum. To be able to rule without worrying about the Crystal Heart's light, Venesi was trapped into an eternal fear, putting her into an intense sleep. Helping by the main six and Elysia army, they were able to make the king weak enough during a battle to approach Venezi. Selena uses her power to travel into her sleep, finding her and make her return. Now bright awake, she could use her magic to bring back the light in the kingdom, defeating the King's Shadow Spectrum for good into a couple of dark crystal that will be forever sealed by bright crystal light. Venezi fused with the crystal heart for it to be protected forever, really close to her. It is shattered because some of the crystal heart pieces is used to seal the king. And here was the end of Shadow Spectrum and his army of Umbran ponies. It is now just a legend. Can his mind be exorcised from the Umbran rage? Should we have some faith that he could return back to normal? No one really knows, and it would be too dangerous to try to wake him up and find out. Also, no one knows where is Spectrum now, aside from Venezi and Selena, who works together to seal him. But the legend says that on the day of celebrating the return of the Crystal Heart and its love power, Spectrum Black Crystal will turn bright white and emitting a soft sound, calling for his lover, so someone can find him and free him from the nightmare he's into. So, is it really just a legend, or will you celebrate this day in the Crystal Empire to find out yourself?